it has been 2 weeks for me, but it's probably been 10 seconds for you. We are back working on Iggy. Where I last left off, we got the front suspension done, and and the wheels on, all mocked up. But we gotta get the rear coilovers done, and the rear wheels mocked up. Locked up? No, mocked up. And then we're gonna try to figure out why that right front is sticking out a little more, because I'm still not exactly sure what's going on with that. So the shop's a little full today, so I'm gonna be working on the ground like all y'all do at home. You know, no fancy stuff going on with me, just jacks and jack stands. But hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. And I can't really complain because the car that is taking up my bay is pretty cool, and you're probably gonna see that in a future episode here. So let's get to work on Iggy. Alright, so we got our first top mount off of the left-hand strut, and already we're running into a slight issue. You saw me struggling with that top mount, or top nut, but that wasn't actually the issue we're running into. This is. So this little cup, this both houses the bump stop and is a place for the boot to attach on here. Unfortunately, we need our spring seat, which is this guy, bolt up to there, and I don't want to do that kind of stack. That's not going to work, because then the strut shaft will have to come through all of that stack, and that's not good. So we need to get rid of this cup on here. Luckily for me, I see there are 3 spot welds holding this thing on, and I think I'm going to try to just drill those out from the bottom here, remove this whole cup, put that on there so it's flush, and we should be able to get a nice amount of thread use out of the top nut here, unlike the front, which is using barely any nut at all. We want more thread engagement for sure. So I'm going to get to that and be back in a second. Alright, so we have successfully removed that cup. It was a bit of a pain. The spot welds didn't really want to go nowhere, but we have a flat mount with no cup. I drilled this out to match the size of this shaft, and we are pretty much ready to go together now. One problem I did run into is on the rear, the diameter here is actually a little bit bigger, and there's no way we could have ground down this bump stop cap nearly enough to get the sleeve over top. So we're gonna have to do without it, which kind of sucks, because that means this bump stop is kind of going to be, this bump stop is going to be kind of riding on this seal right here. So I kind of want to see if I can't figure something out to put here as like a washer. I could maybe just cut this off, but I'm gonna see if I have any washers laying around that'll work for that. And then we're going to assemble this thing, and the next thing you see will be an assembled rear coil over her. Alright, so I'm a little concerned the rear might sit a little lower than the front. We have just a smidge of a gap here between our upper spring perch and our spring. Now this is at full low. The fronts are at full low right now, so I figured the rears would probably have to be too, but I have a feeling we're gonna have to adjust this bad boy up quite a bit. But that is it all together. We got our bump stops, plastic isolators. If you look down in here, you can just see that big old washer I managed to find in there, and I wrapped it in a little bit of tape so it's not gonna rattle or anything. So that's what that bump stop's going to ride on now, so I'm happy with that. Ended up actually wrapping the shaft of the strut in electrical tape to get this thing to be centered on there. All of these O-rings proved to be just a little bit too big, because this dimension is way too wide for any of those O-rings to work. There we go, there's English. So I'm going to throw this one in the car, get the other one done, get this thing on the ground with the wheels, and we're gonna see what it looks like. I'm kind of curious. oh man, do I love modifying cars. So, here's the problem we run into. So remember how I was saying that, well, like a few minutes ago for you guys, that right front was sticking out a lot more than the left front, and I couldn't figure out why. I figured out why. Because if we look at, which by the way, fuck yeah, this thing looks dope. I got a little bit of poke going on, but you know, overall I am, oh, this thing's gonna look really good once we get it dialed in. But back to what I was saying. So I was looking at this side, trying to figure out what kind of fender flare I would need. We're sticking out about that much. I come around to the passenger side on the rear, and we're sticking out a lot more. It's maybe hard to tell on camera, but when I measured it, it is significantly more. So here's what I found out. The right side wheels are a different offset than the left side wheels. What? What's really confusing is these all came off of the same car. And the wheels are directional. So you can see the little triangle points pointing forward. And then we come around the other side. Little triangle points pointing forward. So they're directional per side, but the offset was different. Now I don't remember if the car I pulled these off of, the wheels were on like correctly as far as directional wise goes, or if they had the lower offset in the rear and the higher offset in the front. I can't remember. It's been 2 years since that happened. But it looks like we are gonna have to throw the directionness to the wind and do some tire swapping, which really sucks. I am sad that, like, I really like directional wheels. I am a fan of directional wheels, and now I'm gonna have to fuck it up and run like a messed up setup on this. Not exactly happy, but hey, it is what it is. There's not really much we can do about it. The fact of the matter is we can fix it. Let me get out of the light. I am really bad at doing these shots, aren't I? The fact is we can fix it. I think I'm gonna put the wider offset in the front and the narrower on the rear. I figure giving the front a wider track would be better than the rear. Doesn't really matter. It's not much. They're only like ½ an inch difference in offset. Now I could run spacers on this side, but I'm already running spacers. I don't want to stack spacers. Oh, but hey, you know what? She looks good. This is starting to look like an actual like fun car now. Let's see this thing from the front angle. Oh yeah, yeah, that's it right there. Definitely needs some flares. I don't like the tires poking out like that. Oh, and by the way, the rear is currently also sitting lower than the front, and I had to jack it up. The first time I let it down, it was actually the tire was just sitting on the fender, which, you know, not exactly what we want. But, so the rear can go lower if I never need it to. We actually have to raise it slightly to match that front. I wish I could bring the front down more, but, well, I can. So I was thinking about this. What I could do is take that coilover sleeve and flip it, because there's like a spot about that far, like that much on the bottom of that spring perch that's not threaded. So I could flip it, lower it even more, but man, we already have like zero suspension travel up front. I think it'd just be riding on the bump stop then, which we gotta be pretty close to as is. Actually, you know what? While we're figuring things out, let's take a look and see where that bump stop is. Alright, so it's a little hard to see up in here, but it sure does look to me like that bump stop is pretty much riding like on the bump stoppy, whatever you call that piece, the metal piece that it rides on. Yeah, I might actually have to trim those a little shorter. Either that or we got to find a different way to lower our height here in the front, because otherwise this is pretty much as low as we can go. See if I can get my hand up in there. Feel this bump stop. Oh yeah, we are. Yep, that is pretty much riding on the bump stop as is right now. So this is a classic example of why shorter bodied coilovers are a thing, because that strut is just too long, pretty much is what we're running into. And I don't know, we're just going to have to deal with it. This is pretty much as low as we're going to get. And hey, you know what, that's fine. This thing isn't all about the lows, but I do wish it was a little lower, just because kind of monster truck status right now, isn't it? Which is weird. I can't imagine what this thing would have looked like with those wheels on it and the stock suspension. I probably should have done that first, just for giggles. Anyways, that's about all I'm going to do here today. Like I said, my hoists are full. You probably saw in the background there the car I was talking about before, and we're going to talk about that in another video. And of course, Iggy will be returning for more work, because this is a perpetually never-ending project. So like and subscribe so you can get all the updates on all the project cars, all the other stuff I'm doing on the channel. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Peace.